Welcome back to the channel. This will be my latest draft for Matchday 4 as we all get unlimited transfers for the round of 16 and a $5 million increase to our budget. I described the main differences between the group stages and the knockouts in my first draft podcast. And one more thing to add is that we can't roll any transfers at this stage of the competition, and we get plenty at each round. And of course, the further we go into this tournament, the more transfers we get, and we can also have more players per club. And the round of 16, we can pick up to 4 players from the same team. Now on screen, you can see the updated chip strategy graphics. So a few weeks ago, I talked about my favorite time to use every single booster, and we still don't know what the mystery chip was, but now we do. And it was revealed during the deadline stream. I gave my initial thoughts on it, the Qualification Booster. But in terms of the wild card, I think Matchday 6 and 7 are definitely decent times to use it. You can't use it in Matchday 4 because we all get unlimited transfers. But I feel that Matchday 5 is the best time to utilize the wildcard chip if you still have it in your back pocket. This allows you to navigate fixture swings while going against the template, and as a result, you could use unlimited transfers in Matchday 4 to solely focus on the round of 16 and optimizing the Qualification Booster in the process. And saving the wildcard until the very end could lessen the impact of the most powerful chip in the game, especially with more free transfers later on. And with unlimited moves in Matchday 4, we can use the wildcard to set ourselves up for the rest of the tournament during the quarterfinals. So I think that's the best way to utilize the wildcard chip. But in terms of the 12th man, ideally you'd use this as early as possible, but I do think the wildcard and the Qualification Booster takes even more importance to use in Matchdays 4 and 5 respectively. So in this case, the weakest teams can be targeted more effectively if you activate this as early as possible. And using the 12th man is plausible in Matchday 6 and 7, but the ceiling of this chip and your plays in general would be lower on paper. So it all depends on your remaining chips. And let's say, for example, you've already used the wildcard chip, then I would recommend using the 12th man a little bit earlier and probably in Matchday 5 whilst using the Qualification Booster in Matchday 4. That would be my opinion on it. So in the previous World Cup a few years ago, I activated the 12th man booster on Mbappe in Matchday 1 and he delivered 9 points. However, I did the same thing in this tournament and Mbappe didn't even feature, so I got 0 points from this booster. Now with the Maximum Captain, it was formerly known as the Power Captain in the World Cup, and I got a hat-trick from Mbappe in the World Cup final. But similar to the 12th man, you can deploy this chip at any stage of the competition, and the ceiling will be higher in earlier rounds, so it can be used effectively at any time. However, it's also easier to get a captaincy haul without the Maximum Captain when you have more captaincy windows and easier fixtures. This will only become more difficult as the tournament progresses with some difficult games to call. I mean, look at the round of 16 already. We've got some difficult games, I think, like Botafogo versus Palmeiras. Now, Matchday 7 for me looks ideal for this booster, just like it was in World Cup Fantasy. But you can get some massive gains with this chip and the 12th man at any stage of the competition. But the final booster to talk about is the Qualification chip. So players in your team who qualify for the next round will earn 2 additional points. This mystery chip was revealed after the Matchday 3 deadline, so you saw my reaction during the latest deadline stream there. It can be used for 1 round during the knockouts, so it's not like the 12th man or Power Captain, aka the Maximum Captain, which can be used at any time. I would consider activating this booster in Matchday 4 with easier games to call. During the round of 16, you can earn more qualification bonus points by using this chip as early as possible. You can still get a lot of gains in Matchday 5 and 6, but my recommendation would be Matchday 4, and this would be redundant for the Club World Cup final because we only have 2 teams left, of course, by that stage of the competition, so the Qualification Booster will be rendered pretty useless by that stage. So my kind of summary right now, if you have every single chip remaining, will be to use the Qualification Booster in Matchday 4, the wildcard in Matchday 5, the 12th man for the semi-finals in Matchday 6, and the Maximum Captain chip for the Club World Cup final. But let's say, for example, you don't have the wildcard, you used it in Matchday 2 or 3, then I would recommend using the 12th man in Matchday 5 instead. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Which chips will you be using? Be sure to smash the like button of this video, subscribe for new. Let's try to get this over 200 likes on YouTube, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 34 subscribers, and check all the links in the description. But without further ado, let's delve straight into my latest draft for Matchday 4. At the time of this recording, we still have 2 groups that have to be settled, so let's keep that in mind. But the confirmed fixtures for the round of 16 include Botafogo versus Palmeiras, which is the opening game of Matchday 4. Then we have Benfica versus Chelsea, PSG versus Inter Miami, Flamengo against Bayern Munich, Inter Milan facing Fluminense, and then Borussia Dortmund against Monterrey. And that's how you want to sort your captaincy out. So you want to put the armband on your first player. So if you have a Palmeiras or Botafogo asset, captain them first. And if they don't get the points you want, you can switch it to a Benfica or Chelsea player and then keep moving it in chronological order. If you have any questions about that, check out my how to play guide, leave a comment in this video, but it has been discussed in a lot of detail in my recent live streams and podcasts. But let's start off with the 2 goalkeepers in my latest draft, and there have been some changes from my previous team. This will be a different approach with some very expensive goalkeepers between the sticks, and Manuel Neuer is one of them. He isn't a differential by any means, but his ownership will be lower than the likes of Donnarumma, who was in my previous squad, and I think it'll be a very close call between those two, and we could see PSG face Bayern Munich anyway in the quarterfinal stage. I also show the bracket in my first draft video, and towards the end I will also show you how things could look like for the quarterfinals and beyond. So those of the wildcard chip can have a great advantage because they can use unlimited transfers right now to optimize the qualification booster and only focus on what's right in front of them, then wildcard out of that situation in Matchday 5 if needed. But I think ultimately we can still do really well in this game with different chip strategies, and Manuel Neuer is one of the best goalkeepers in the game. The same goes for Sommer, who was very disappointing in the first 2 match days, but he got the clean sheet against River Plate, and Inter Milan had to win that game, and they did by a 2-0 scoreline. That was the first clean sheet for Sommer in this competition. I was quite disappointed by him because I started this competition with Jan Sommer, and in UCL Fantasy, I bought him for the Champions League final to bench Donnarumma. Whilst I did well in that game, even in Matchday 17, that was still one of the only criticisms I had about my decision-making process. But Inter Milan are still a solid team defensively, even with their new manager, and I think they'll only get better as the tournament progresses. It is Fluminense in the round of 16, which looks very promising, but you could definitely make some criticisms about both of these goalkeeper selections because their potential quarterfinal opponents could be very difficult, and you could definitely find better fixtures in the long term from other options. But I still think they're 2 of the best goalkeepers in the game, and they definitely deserve consideration for your Matchday 4 squad. One of the biggest challenges with the round of 16 is kind of settling on your preferences on the teams to reach the quarterfinals. I think for the most part it's quite easy, but Botafogo versus Palmeiras is quite difficult on paper, and I think Igor Jesus up front is a great option from Botafogo, but likewise you've got Piquerez and other Palmeiras options that are very solid defensively, Weverton in goal as well, Alex Telles as well from Botafogo if you want to cover them from a defensive perspective. So I think it's very tough, and you can have a combination of both teams, but you also want to avoid conflicts when possible, especially a striker or forward up against the defender. And if you are using the qualification booster, then you will lose out on some points if you kind of balance things out a little bit more. So I think that chip does favor a kind of all-in approach on certain teams, and if it does go your way, you are looking at a lot of additional points in the process. And if some of those players have less than 5% ownership, they will also qualify for the scouting bonus. So a defender that qualifies to the next round and is also a differential could earn you up to 11 points just by keeping a clean sheet, which is absolutely overpowered. And I think Piquerez could be one of those options, but I think that is a very tough matchup. Over the last 10 games, Botafogo have won 4 times, Palmeiras have 3 victories, and there's also 3 draws in the process. So I think that could definitely be one where you get it completely wrong, and I'm still undecided about my preference on which Brazilian team will make it to the quarterfinals. However, I don't feel the same way about Paris Saint-Germain, and that's why I'd recommend a defensive double-up, and Hakimi is by far the best option overall, especially with the others who are still very good choices in Bacho, Nuno Mendes, and also Marquinhos. They all have over 5% ownership, so apart from saving money, you're not really getting too much over Hakimi in that sense, and he ultimately has the most attacking threat from that PSG defense. So I would recommend Hakimi, and if you have the funds, I would also go for the other expensive fullback in Nuno Mendes. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to buy Hakimi in Matchday 3. I was kind of locked out and you saw that in the deadline stream. So I lost out on 7 points in the process, but Nuno Mendes still got me a clean sheet and 7 points overall, and he could get some attacking returns during the knockouts as well. So I think this defensive double up is definitely sound. You've also got Donnarumma in goal, who could be a set and forget option for this tournament. And of course the midfielders, there are so many to choose from. Even Vitinha, who's on penalties. Ousmane Dembele could be back, not to mention Doué, who has underperformed so far, but he's got so much talent, and Kvaratskhelia is doing the business. So I think with PSG, you are kind of struggling to limit it to just 4 players in the round of 16. But let's complete this defensive line with 2 more options, and one of them, yes, I sold on the wild card in Matchday 3, and he scored the winning goal against Ulsan HD, and that is Svensson, who has that attacking potential, not to the same level as Nuno Mendes or Hakimi, but I think all of these defenders in general do offer something from open play and set pieces. So I do like Svensson, and he is the best Borussia Dortmund defender. But in my case, I went for Anton in Matchday 3, and he qualified for scouting bonus. So if Svensson doesn't get the attacking returns, then from that perspective, you could see the likes of Anton get a bigger haul because of the scouting bonus. But ultimately, it will be Svensson who has the most threat from open play, and he's got the best chance of getting goals or assists on a regular basis. But the 5th and final defender is from Juventus, and it all depends on who Juventus get, and do they beat Man City or get that result needed to qualify top of their group. And that will be pivotal, because if they face Real Madrid, I would avoid this defender and most Juventus assets. But Alberto Costa only costs 4 million, and you've also got Kalulu, the likes of Cambiasso and Di Gregorio in goal, and Yildiz up front is a very enticing option. But I think Costa just offers great value at 4 million, and he's a facilitator for these more expensive defenders in this team, not to mention the midfielders and forwards I'll be going for. But I'm very happy with this setup. I think from a structural perspective, the main criticism or concern is that I'm investing too much money in the goalkeeper position, and their fixtures can be quite tough in the quarterfinals and beyond, should they make it there. But I'm still very happy with this defensive line. Another difficult game to call is Chelsea versus Benfica, and based on this tournament so far, you'd probably favour Benfica a little bit more. But if you are looking to cover Chelsea, I think Enzo Fernandez might be the best midfielder they have to offer. There is also Pedro Neto, who has scored twice in this tournament, and Cole Palmer, who has the biggest ceiling, but he has been very underwhelming in 2025. I've been talking about that quite a lot, so let's not offend any more Chelsea fans, and no more shivering me timbers and all that stuff. But I think Enzo Fernandez is offering the open play threat, and he also can do it from set pieces too. For both club and country, he is performing very well recently, despite the red card he got for Argentina against Colombia, and I think he is a very solid option, and not to mention the price tag is very appealing, so he can be yet another budget player or medium priced option that really allows you to go for 2 or 3 expensive midfielders or forwards while also maintaining a balanced structure overall. And with a 5 million increase to our budget, it does allow you to be a bit more adventurous with some of your picks. But Enzo Fernandez is solid and reliable, and I do prefer him in Club World Cup Fantasy compared to FPL as one particular example. But next up is one of my favourite players in world football right now, in Doué, but not so much in Club World Cup Fantasy. In my opinion though, he will step up in the knockout stages. He hasn't scored or assisted yet in this tournament, despite PSG beating Atletico Madrid 4-0 in Matchday 1, and they also got another comfortable win in Matchday 3. Despite a few shaky moments defensively, I still think going forwards, they are one of the best teams in the world, and they also have a very strong midfield. And in this game, they have so many options to choose from, but I think Doué is still one of the better picks overall, especially when it comes to the goal scoring. The same goes for a Bayern Munich midfielder, and whilst I do like Jamal Musiala and he should be available for the round of 16, my preference remains with Michael Olise. I don't see myself going away from him, despite that benching against Benfica in Matchday 3, which was quite disappointing. I still think that bodes well for the knockouts, and Flamengo are a decent side, but if there's one player who can unlock their defence, I think Michael Olise would be that option. He is scoring and assisting in virtually every game for Bayern Munich nowadays when he does get the start, and I think he's gone to another level since his move from Crystal Palace. But the last 2 midfielders is going to be very interesting. It's rare for me to ever do this, but I'm going for 2 brothers, actually, from different teams. One of them is Joe Bellingham, who got an assist and less than 60 minutes in Matchday 3 against Ulsan HD, and the other one is Jude Bellingham. And in fact, they've got the same number of points, which is quite nice, isn't it? At least they did have the same number of points before Matchday 3. We'll see how Bellingham does tonight, of course. So at the time of this recording, Real Madrid haven't played yet, and that will obviously have a little impact there. But I think Jude Bellingham is a really solid choice as well. Despite a poor 2025, a bit like Cole Palmer, he did show what he could do in this tournament against Pachuca in Matchday 2. But he's not going to face teams like that very often, especially in the knockouts. And so much depends on that Man City versus Juventus result. And based on that, I might go for a lot of Juventus players, or maybe just load up on Man City instead. And Real Madrid will likely face either team regardless. So that's something I could rectify in my team selection, and maybe I'll deviate away from Bellingham and instead go for yet another PSG midfielder like Dembele if he's available, Kvaratskhelia, or go to Cole Palmer and back him to return to form. Not to mention Jamal Musiala, who looks really enticing against Flamengo, but going forwards, I think facing PSG potentially in the quarterfinals, that doesn't look as appealing all of a sudden. But I do like the structure of this midfield. You've got 3 expensive midfielders in Bellingham, Elise, and Doué, and then 2 really solid budget to mid-price picks in Enzo Fernandez and Joe Bellingham. Lautaro Martinez scored in the first 2 match days for Inter Milan, and he has been very clutch for them in recent games. He didn't score against River Plate, but I think he is the best Inter Milan attacker overall. But when you do rank their assets in general from every single position, you'd also be looking at Dumfries in that defensive line and Jan Sommer in goal, and I do like both of them for the round of 16, but not so much in future rounds. But I think Lautaro has that high ceiling, and he can also take penalties when Calhanoglu isn't there, and he's also got that open play threat, and that goal against Urawa Red Diamonds was not only clutch, but also of brilliant quality. He essentially scored a chilena from a corner, so I think Lautaro Martinez is a very good option, and his ownership is quite low. He won't qualify for the scouting bonus, but it is low enough to get significant gains from any returns that the Argentine does produce. Now, one correction I have to say is that Bellingham, the Bellingham brothers, don't have the same points. Joe Bellingham now has 15, and Jude Bellingham has 12 before he plays that Matchday 3 game. But the next striker is a premium, and whilst Harry Kane made it to my last draft, I am going for Erling Haaland in this one, and maybe, depending on who faces who, I could go to Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius instead. So I'm quite open-minded about this premium striker. I might even go for 2, to be fair. I think it's quite good to be open-minded when making drafts, and ultimately what I want to do by the time we get to the team selection is combine what I've done with my first draft and this one and make it even better. But once we get that information of who Man City face, that's where things are settled, and I've got a clear idea, because there is one side of the bracket which is much easier than the other, and if Man City are placed with the easier fixtures on paper with a good route to the final, I think Erling Haaland suddenly becomes one of the best options in the game. You can certainly make a case for Marmoush or Phil Foden. They are solid picks, but I think Erling Haaland is even better, assuming you've got the funds available to make that purchase happen. So it's all a question of the fixture in the end, of Haaland or Mbappe. Do they face each other? And if so, are you backing Real Madrid or Man City? But as things stand, I'm quite happy with Erling Haaland, and he is fixture proof regardless, and Man City can go all the way, irrespective of if they finish first or second in their group. But the final forward is from the same group, and that's going to be Yildiz, who was in my first draft. He is the highest scoring forward at the time of this recording, and I think this is a very solid structure. We've got 1 premium in Haaland. Lautaro Martinez is technically premium, although you could make a case that he's just below that bracket, and Yildiz is middle priced or medium priced. So I think it's a nice balance overall, and they all offer great value, especially in the case of the Turkish international, who has had a fantastic tournament so far. He has performed against weak opposition in Al Ain and Wydad Casablanca, but I think he's got that high ceiling, and even against Man City in Matchday 3 and also in future rounds, he can do the business. So I'm very happy with these picks, but ultimately if Juventus get the easier fixtures, I think Erling Haaland could be displaced by Mbappe or Harry Kane once again, and I could add a third Juventus player. Whenever you play a fantasy game like the Club World Cup, UCL, World Cup or the Euros, being in charge of your substitutions is crucial. It is called manual subs for a reason, and you'd rather do that than rely on automatic subs and for a player to miss out to get some points off your bench, because you can also change the captaincy by manually changing things during each window, and that's what you want to ensure with your 15-man squad, especially going into match day 4. So my first captain would be Piquerez, because guess what? He is the first player who features from my 15-man squad, but that isn't settled in stone, because I think Botafogo versus Palmeiras is a really difficult game to call, and if you are activating the qualification booster, which is my current plan, I think that could be one of those games which is so difficult to call, and you don't have the confidence to pull that off and make sure that you get the extra 2 additional points on top of it. But in goal, I'm going for Manuel Neuer, who plays on the 29th of June in the UK, and Jan Sommer plays on the 30th. But even if you have 2 goalkeepers playing on the same day, provided they don't play at the same time, you can still have 2 of them and make subs and give yourself another chance of getting some points. But I've also got Hakimi and Nuno Mendes in my defensive line. The same goes for Joe Bellingham, Enzo Fernandez, Elise, and Doué. And up front, I've got Lautaro Martinez, Erling Haaland, and Yildiz, with a bench of Sommer, Alberto Costa, Bellingham, and Svensson. But once those fixtures are confirmed and we get the dates, anyone who plays earlier will be in my starting 11, and those playing towards the very end of matchday 4 will be on my bench. That's why I always do in Club World Cup Fantasy, but I still get questions about it. I get it. People are new to the game, or they might be starting a little bit late, whatever it is. But across all my videos and podcasts, I have talked about this multiple times. I even made dedicated videos like the chip strategy guide and the how to play video for Club World Cup Fantasy. By watching those 2, you'll have a great idea of how Club World Cup Fantasy works. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What is your plan for matchday 4? Will you be using the qualification booster as early as possible, or saving it for later in this competition? And with the wildcard chip, when do you think is the best time to use it? I provided my thoughts in this podcast, and on screen you can see the bracket, which was confirmed at the very beginning of the tournament, obviously, but I want to show you the confirmed fixtures and with the remaining games once they are announced. And of course, by the time this video is published, that will be the case. I'll be dissecting this in more detail during my deadline stream on Saturday, and also in the upcoming team selection. With both my drafts, this one and my first draft, both of them have the exact same squad value, 105 million, so nothing is left over in the bank, and player prices are fixed, so we won't see any price rises or falls, and what you see is what you get. But these fixtures, Palmeiras versus Botafogo, Benfica versus Chelsea, those winners will face each other. Then for Inter Milan versus Fluminense, that will be another very interesting game. And on the other side of the bracket, which in my opinion looks a little bit tougher, you've got PSG versus Inter Miami, Flamengo facing Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund up against Monterrey, and then we could get something like Man City versus Real Madrid. If not, Los Blancos will face Juventus instead. So that'll be very interesting, and it does change a lot of factors and which teams I pile up on. I'm quite bullish on certain clubs anyway, like Paris Saint-Germain, but even a potential quarterfinal against Bayern Munich looks really tough, and you can't underestimate the likes of Flamengo, even Palmeiras and Botafogo. We've had some very good teams in this tournament from other continents like South America, and the Brazilians have certainly done really well so far in the Club World Cup. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss a single uploaded live stream for Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and UCL Fantasy as well. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you on Saturday for yet another deadline stream, and keep your eyes peeled for even more content.